Because as soon as I start recording, builders turn up outside the house with their really loud vans.
Green flag, green flag.
So hello race fans, and welcome to something a little bit new for Team Motorsports. I'm trying this out. This will be a little trial thing. This is the Transatlantic transmission. Basically, I tried doing this with a full-on Rings of Noise podcast, talking about NASCAR news and Indy and all this other stuff, alongside trying to do Motorsport 101 and other stuff going on in life and career and everything, which you'll probably hear about at a later date. Basically, a lot's going on at the moment. It's very hectic. So, I thought I'd do this video instead for you every week. Make it a little weekly thing. This is kind of like how Garage Area started out way back in 2009. I just sit in front of a camera, talk about NASCAR stuff. That's literally it. So hopefully most Mondays you will get this as your rundown of NASCAR news, mostly NASCAR news. There'll also be some IndyCar as well. There'll also be some other stuff. American Motorsport's very cool. You know I like a lot of it. So this week's one will mostly be NASCAR because we've got plenty to talk about from NASCAR. And most of it very good. That's the best bit. NASCAR is on fire at the moment. The 2016 season has been so good so far. Honestly, I don't think I've enjoyed watching NASCAR racing, just from a fan perspective, since 2006. Probably. I've had moments, there's been odd races, there've been great races, but consistently, week after week, I don't think I've enjoyed the quality of racing so much in NASCAR since, at the very least, 2007. Nearly 10 years since the standard of racing has been this good. And all it took was a little cutting downforce. So good, I'm smacking my own microphone. That's how good it is. But the Sprint Showdown to warm up for the Sprint AllStar Race. Normally, the Sprint Showdown, not worth talking about. It's, you know, a couple of guys qualify in, first and second get in, people in the fan vote. Normally, Dale Jr. or Danica Patrick, whoever's not in there, voted in. Well, Danica Patrick made it in on the fan vote, so sad face for Matt DiBenedetto. But to make up for it, we had 3 segments and 2 photo finishes. It was unreal. We had Trevor Bayne going 3 wide down the backstretch in the first race to win the first segment from Chase Elliott by 5 thousandths of a second in an absolutely mesmeric move for the win. We then had segment 2, which is pretty much the Greg Biffle beatdown. It's fine, he made it in. Third segment, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott went to war. You had Ryan Blaney on the comeback try. You had Chase Elliott coming back. He faded badly in the second segment. Third segment, he got fresh tyres. And oh my goodness, he passed about 6 cars in one corner. Passed another 2, sliced to the inside, went past Landon Castle, who actually restarted the third segment third. And everyone was like, oh my God, if Landon Castle... Oh, yeah, Chase Elliott's kind of blown past him already. But my God, just seriously good. And then, oh my word, the final 2 laps. There was a point where Elliott and Larson were pretty much almost 90 degrees sideways through 1 and 2. They were smacking into each other coming to the line. It was literally, Jeff Gordon mentioned this in commentary, it was like Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch at Darlington 03 all over again. Oh my word. The final margin of victory, I think, was something like 1/1500ths of a second, 0.015. It was barely nothing. It was just amazing. Now, bearing in mind, they've taken a little bit more downforce off this weekend. They've taken off certain elements of the brake fans, like a cooling fans thing that also provide a little bit of suction to the ground. Taking that off, they've reduced side force, so less dirty air down the sides of the car. Was this just a one-off for the All-Star Race? Because if it is, can we just have it for the rest of the season? Please. Steve O'Donnell, please. If I ask really nicely, I speak on behalf of pretty much all of the NASCAR fan base. Please give us this for the rest of the season. Chase Elliott, heartbroken twice. He was the loser in both of those photo finishes. You would have felt for him, but luckily he made it in on the fan vote anyway, so he was okay. Danica Patrick was the second fan vote winner. As I said, sad face for Matt DiBenedetto, who was going to run Matt DiBurrito as the name tag above his door on his car if he made it in on the fan vote. The NASCAR subreddit really got behind him. It was great, you know, it was awesome. He was really humble. And the Wood brothers, who also were very unlucky to miss out on Ryan Blaney, he was penalised for a jump start at the end of the first segment and made a great recovery. He ended up third in the final segment, but it just wasn't enough. They were really sporting about it, and he had a lot of support. It's been great seeing Matt DiBenedetto have his moment in the sun. You know, this is just great stuff. I'm a sucker for the underdogs. His emotion after finishing 6th at Bristol was just absolutely unreal. You could tell he's really cherished the support of the NASCAR subreddit. And I hope it continues. I hope he really becomes like a little bit of an underdog fan favourite. There's plenty to root for. Also, as I said, shout out to Landon Castle. He made it up to 7th in the second segment, passing some really strong cars. He then restarted 3rd after a great pit stop. And I think in the end he finished like 6th. So very decent stuff considering he was up against some very high caliber opponents there. So good job, Landon Castle. Well done. Now, the All-Star Race itself, it had a lot to live up to. And overall, I thought it was a really fun race. The format came in for a lot of stick. Basically, there was 2 let me get this right. 2 segments of 50 laps, and then a final segment of 13. There was various things of, I think after segment 1, you could only pit for 2 tyres, I think. Basically, in the both segments, you have to make a mandatory pit stop, I think. Yes, no, that's correct. You had to make it under green. At the end of the second segment, there was a certain inversion of cars based on someone picked a thing out of an envelope or something. It was a bit silly, basically. I don't think the format was that hard to follow in real time. I mean, I know I'm doing a great job of selling how simple it was to you right now, but there's been a lot of discussion since that it was a bit of a confusing format. I don't think it was too much so. I think the one thing that really threw everyone off was there was a late caution in segment 1 where certain cars had not yet pitted. In fact, about 4 or 5 cars were on pit road as a caution flew for Jamie McMurray spinning. And because you had to pit within... The latest you could pit was up to about 3 laps to go in the segment. That ticked over under caution with Matt Kenseth having not pitted. So he was docked an entire lap for not pitting, which a lot of people thought was just a bit harsh. And also what didn't help is that for some reason, a bunch of cars who'd pitted earlier in that segment were trapped a lap down and never got their lap back. They never got the wave around. Nothing happened. No one really knew. They were sort of in a limbo and were just sort of stuck a lap down for the rest of the race. A few of them wrecked out. There was guys like Trevor Bayne, Tony Stewart, Danica Patrick in there. Jamie McMurray, well, McMurray had all sorts of issues. He had a bit of a nightmare of a night anyway. But there was some good cars stuck down there, and in a field that was only about 20 cars anyway. It's the AllStar Race, so it's not the biggest field anyway. It's an invitational exhibition race. It just kind of killed a lot of the opponent. It left about 12, 13 cars maybe in with a shot of winning for most of the race, and that was a little bit confusing. That kind of threw everyone off, so that wasn't handled too well, but otherwise, I think it was fine. I quite enjoyed the inversion, because what happened was a certain amount of cars would be inverted going into the final segment, but those who weren't behind them were allowed to pit for tyres, and because Goodyear had brought an even softer tyre to the facility, tyre drop-off and fade and grip was massive, so it was absolutely huge. So, for example, in Jimmy Johnson's case, he faded, he deliberately dropped back in segment 2 to get the inversion. He then started up front, but absolutely died within about 3 laps. He was just gobbled up by the guys who did pit for tyres. It was an excellent race overall. It was a really enjoyable race. The quality of racing was really, really good. Kind of the same as we've seen so far this year. Still a fair degree of separation between the cars, like a restart. They don't stay in like one massive pack. Like I remember back in the early 2000s, they'd stay like really bunched together for like 10, 15 laps after a restart. It was something to behold. They do spread out still, but the thing is, people can drive side by side. They can drive nose to tail. Basically, if you're faster than the guy in front, you can pull up behind them. You can go side by side with them. You can look around. You don't immediately have to drop back again because you just drowned out by dirty air. You can't do that. But it just leads to so much better racing, so much better passing. There was some wild stuff. I remember on the restart for the final segment, Kyle Larson shot to the inside, took the lead, coming up for 2, and they went 4 wide behind him. It was absolute insanity. And the finish was a little bit of it was a shame because it was setting up to be an absolute grandstand finish. Logano had better tyres than Kyle Larson in front of him and was hunting him down, and Larson had driven an absolute storming day. He was my driver of the entire weekend anywhere in motorsport. This was a guy who'd gone to 3 stages of hell, quite literally, in the sprint showdown, and had held off a charging Chase Elliott, who also had a good all-star race. And Larson was on. He was desperately holding off Logano, who clearly had the faster car. Logano got round him, and then Larson tried to get him back on the outside, and then it was just a little bit of contact, and his key just went wide, and that was it. And I think he got a puncher, and that was it, and he finished like 16th. And with about a lap to go, the white flag flew, and it was like, oh, well, that's it over then. Because, like, second place Brad Keselowski was quite a way back, so it was like, oh, this is going to be an epic battle for the finish between... Oh. Well, Logano's got it then. And that was the only disappointment. Like, I'm not disappointed Logano won at all. I'm not one of these people that hates a race because of who won. I think you've got to be really kind of petty to still... Well, I mean, I guess if you're a Matt Kenseth fan, you're going to have resentful feelings about who won, but not like, congrats to Joey Logano, deserved it fully. I mean, the Penske tribute car that he ran, and it had like all these like pictures embedded in the Pennzoil scheme of all these legendary Penske drivers and everything. That was really neat. And he drove a great race in the final segment. He was up front most of the night, fully deserved the win. He battled Larson well. I just would have loved to have seen him and Larson coming down to the death. And I think having seen those 2 photo finishes in the showdown, I think we were like, oh, please, can we have one more? Oh, no, we're not. We have overdrawn our quota of photo finishes for today. Thank you very much. But still, overall, really fun race. As I say, whatever they changed up, whatever they added to the package for this race, please keep it for the rest of the season. Please just bring it back. Like, even if you're not planning to, just bring it back. The racing has been great already this season with the downforce cuts they've already made. Whoa, this was even better. This was really, really good. So a solid All-Star Weekend. Really good. Now, the other major bit of news from All-Star Weekend, it wasn't really race news or anything. New NASCAR game. Now, obviously, I'm a big gamer, a racing gamer. You know this. I like NASCAR games. Haven't liked the recent ones. Not going to lie. You Technics, I'm not going to be a homer for you. I'm a Brit as well, just like you. I'm sorry, the NASCAR The Game series was terrible. It was rubbish. I did a beatdown video on NASCAR 14. 15 was pretty much a placeholder game. It was just literally some updated, skins and everything, just for DMI Games, who are the new company who have started up to make the NASCAR games. They kind of went, well, you know what? Let's fulfill contractual obligations and put out a NASCAR game that was basically the old ETX engine. Don't judge DMI Games on that game. Judge them on this one. And the game in question is NASCAR Heat Evolution. Now, for the young'uns among you, that may not signify anything to you. But for people of kind of my generation, you'll understand the significance of the name NASCAR Heat. The original NASCAR Heat game was a game that came out in, I want to say 2000 or 2001. It may even have been earlier than that. This was the NASCAR game made back in the day by a company called Monster Games. And they also made NASCAR Dirt to Daytona, which is a really, really great NASCAR career mode game where I think you started out as low as like the modified division, the Wheeler Modifieds, and went up through the trucks and everything like that. It had a real old school kind of career mode to it. So these were great NASCAR games. And NASCAR Heat, put it this way, the graphics now on that game look dated, but you can still download as kind of freeware the game engine for NASCAR Heat, and there's still a full modding community for that game to this day, over 15 years after that game's released. It still holds up with all these mods for the current season and all these other mods for cars, and like there's like sports car mods for it, there's like late models, there's classic NASCAR, there's modern NASCAR like the Gen 6, there's IndyCar mods, Grand Am mods. The modding scene for NASCAR Heat is still there 15 years on. That tells you all you need to know about how solid the core game engine is for that game, and I've played it a lot. There was times where I had really terrible PCs, like not like the one I've got now, like really crap PCs that weren't fit to play anything. But because NASCAR Heat had such old graphics, but such a solid game engine, it wasn't taxing enough, so I could still play it on like my really basic PC and still have a riot with it. It's just such good fun. If you can, like, I'd recommend in preparation for this new game, which is going to be co-developed by Monster Games, the guys who worked on the original NASCAR Heat, and it's going to use the original game engine as a basis. I recommend you find NASCAR Heat Essentials and get some of the mods for it. Get involved in that scene, because you'll see, if you weren't aware of the original NASCAR Heat, and I don't think I must have been like 8 years old when the first game came out. But trust me on this one, the news that this is going to be basically a new NASCAR Heat game is very good indeed, because the original NASCAR Heat is a game that still holds up now in terms of its physics and in terms of its actual racing and its competition. So if they're using that original engine as a basis, which apparently they are, this is all good stuff. So, new game is coming out in September. It'll be on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Of course, I'll probably end up playing it on the PC. I'm already excited for it. They also announced a little competition for, basically, the cover star would be decided by who was the highest finishing Toyota in the AllStar Race. They did a tie-up with Toyota. It's funny, because in the room, at the kind of press release, the announcement for it at Charlotte Motor Speedway, they had Matt Dusenbury from DMI, the D in DMI, quite literally, and Carl Edwards there. And they unveiled 4 mock covers for the Toyotas that were already confirmed in the All-Star, which was Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, it would have been 5, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Martin Truex Jr. And of course, everyone goes, hang on a minute, are you not realising that Matt DiBenedetto could be the top guy by, if he gets voted in the fan vote and then, I don't know, everyone crashes on lap 1 because of an unexpected hailstorm or something, he could be the top Toyota. Alas, he didn't even make the All-Star Race. And ironically, the highest finished Toyota was Carl Edwards. So the guy they had in their, their big announcement for the game ended up being the cover star. So he'll be the cover star for the game. They showed off some mock covers. There's a website up, I'll put it in the link in the description now. Gives you a rundown of some of the features. Basically, it sounds like the career mode is going to be revamped. It's going to have a lot of content in it. There's going to be challenge modes. There's going to be things coming back. Basically, I'm really looking forward to this game. I'm cautiously optimistic for it. They also stress it's going to have an emphasis on kind of hardcore simulation modes, which to me kind of says that they've looked at the success of something like Dirt Rally and the fact you've got sims like Assetto Corsa coming over to console now, and it's like, well, what's the point in trying to go simcade and just annoying either the casuals and the hardcore sim guys? Why not just go for that mode anyway? The Formula 1 games have been drifting more and more sort of simulation-y, but they're still kind of simcade. But basically, if they're going the Dirt Rally route, which has been very successful on console and PCs, despite having this really kind of hardcore simulation physics to it, literally, I think the thing is, everything is looking good about this game so far. We haven't seen much gameplay. There was no gameplay trailer yet, but I have no doubt now they've announced the title and everything. Content's to come. So basically, be cautiously optimistic for this one. Even if you haven't heard the original NASCAR Heat, take him from this oldie. It's going to be good, hopefully. We've got a little bit of ARCA to talk about as well. ARCA had their race, the Menards 200 at Toledo Speedway, and it was live streamed on the American Sports Network. And I say live streamed, it was on their website, and I could watch it here in the UK. And this, I don't think I've ever been able to watch live ARCA, you know, unless it's been on Fox Sports and I've had a way of watching it, shall we say. But this was great. It was, you know, a complete way of watching I mean, the stream kind of cracked up a little bit. It wasn't too great at times, but, you know, if it's the first time they're doing it, full props to them. Ray Dunlap was on lead commentary for it, and he did a really solid job. And the ARCA series, I enjoy the ARCA series mainly because I like the tracks they go to. They go to a lot of the old school, kind of the roots of stock car racing in America. I love those kind of ovals like Toledo, like Salem, like Nashville Fairgrounds, Winchester, Five Flags where the Snowball Derby happens, and all those kind of tracks like that. So ARCA goes to a lot of those kind of tracks, as well as some of the big ones from NASCAR, like, you know, Daytona, Talladega, Kansas, Chicagoland, etc. like that. And this was a really fun race. Now they're using the composite bodies. It basically looks like they're running Gen 6s because they're based off the Gen 6 bodies. And it was Myatt Snider who won the race. And he's actually the son of Marty Snider, the broadcaster. You've seen him for many years, pit reporting. Turns out his son, he may well be reporting on his son's racing in the future because his son won in, I think it was his debut. The commentators said it might have been his debut race in ARCA. Good start, that man. That is a good debut, especially at a place like Toledo. Very, very kind of old school Bristol style, you know, one groove down the bottom. It was a very competitive race. There was some great racing in there. Brian Keselowski was in there because I remember Brad was tweeting about wanting to watch his brother in action. So Brian was out there. He had a shot, but he left a rear wrench in his car on a light round of pit stops and had to go to the back of the line. Still finished ninth. But you could tell he was really frustrated after. You would be. You got a shot to win and then, oh bugger, we've left a tool in the back of the car. Quite literally, we are tools. But it was an enjoyable race. Good to see live streamed for us. And finally, bit of IndyCar. Didn't get a chance to watch much of the IndyCar qualifying. We're going to be talking about it a lot more on Motorsport 101 later in the week. But all you need to know is James Hinchcliffe is on pole for the 100th Indy 500, a year after he nearly died practicing for the 99th Indy 500. Do I really need to say any more on how cool that is? I don't think I do, so I'm not. We're going to break it down fully on Motorsport 101 later in the week where we do talk a lot more IndyCar. And someone's calling me. I'm so in demand. I have to go. This has been the first ever Transatlantic transmission. I hope you've enjoyed the format. Comment below. Let me know if you want any suggestions for future episodes or anything like that. Hopefully they'll be coming out regularly on Mondays. With everything as it is at the moment, hopefully I'll be sticking to some sort of plan there. But for now, see you next time, race fans.